Hello, my name is Ya Chao. Today I want to discuss with you 25 bad reasons to believe in God. Really? On YouTube, there is an outspoken atheist who calls himself Friendly Atheist. His real name is Hemant Mehta. He has devoted his life to make ugly faces to religions. If you visit his channel, you can find countless videos slandering God, the Bible, and Christianity. This is the 5th video I make to debunk him. He should know by now that I am picking him as a target, and yet he is silent, pretending no one can debunk him. One of his popular videos is called 25 Bad Reasons to Believe in God. Today I want to use his arguments to show you how simple-minded he is. I will not address all his 25 reasons because that would make this video very long. Therefore, I would only discuss the first few, and they will not be in the same order Mr. Mehta presented. Mr. Mehta said the believers claim that God is undetectable and intangible. God is a spirit, not like we are material. Therefore, God cannot be realized by our usual senses like seeing and touching. You have to use other means to do it. Just like you cannot see the radio waves, and yet when you turn on the radio, you can hear the broadcast. Many atheists demand that God shows himself up for them to see. That is utterly useless, because if God would listen to your command, you will be God yourself, not him. How can we know God exists? We all know that we cannot see the air. But when wind causes the leaf to be blown and the grasses bend, we know wind exists. Therefore, you need to use your mind to see the cause and the effect. Mr. Mehta dislikes Pascal wages, saying no one knows the arts of God's existence. In his mind, that is not 50-50 like flipping a coin. It doesn't really matter whether it is 50-50 or any other numbers. I'm pretty sure most of the drivers that drive a car have auto insurance. Let's guess what is the odds that you will have a car accident when you are going out today. The chances is definitely not 50-50 because we don't see every other people get into some sort of accident. In fact, the odds of getting into an accident are very small, and yet almost everyone buys auto insurance. Why? We buy insurance not because the odds are big, but to minimize the consequence of an accident. If you encounter a serious accident, you may lose your life as well as suffer great financial loss because of that. If you imagine the probability of having an accident is small for not buying insurance, you are a fool. For the same reason, the consequence of having a God, if you don't believe, outweighs the odds of God's existence. By the time you finish this video, you will also know that the probability of God's existence is actually pretty high. So I'm sorry to say that Mr. Mehta missed the point of Pascal wager. His intellectual capacity is rather poor because he cannot think things through. I have a playlist explaining the existence of God from many angles. However, today I will only talk about the most convincing evidence. You can watch the rest of the video in my playlist if you want more evidence. The most convincing evidence is the existence of the first cause. Let's hear what Mr. Mehta has to say about the first cause.
There had to be a first cause. What came before the Big Bang? We don't know. So this argument says something had to cause it, and that cause must be God. But again, how does that help? Who created God? And if someone responds with, well, God is eternal and has always been around, we're right back to square one. That's a cop-out answer.
Before diving into the discussion, let's think about something first. If you ask a child to count from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and up. How long does it take to get to infinity? I think we all agree that if someone has a sound mind, knows that it is impossible to reach infinity ever. By the same token, you cannot count from infinity back to 1 either. Now, if you have a cherry, or any tangible object for that matter, this cherry cannot explain its existence because it comes from a cherry tree. And the cherry tree cannot explain its existence either, because maybe someone ate a cherry and spit the seed onto the ground, then came the cherry tree. We can keep going backward, finding the causes, so we will get a chain of causes and the effects. You can also think from yourself. You have a cause, which is your father. If your father never existed, you wouldn't be here either. So we can trace back to your grandfather and the great-grandfather and so forth. Therefore, we can start from any existing finite, temporal, and material object. We can find one of its causes. The cause must pre-exist before the object. You keep tracing back, you can find a chain of causes and effects. In the chain, every finite, temporal, and material object must have its cause. Also, it takes time to go from a cause to its effect, just like counting number takes time. Now, there are two possibilities. Either there are a finite number of things in the chain or an infinite number of them. If there were an infinite number of them starting from the cause that is an infinity away, it could never reach the present time. Just like you cannot count backward from infinity to 1. But present time does exist because we started from presently existing object. So now exists. This clearly is a contradiction. Therefore, the assumption of infinity causes is wrong. It couldn't be an infinity number of them. Since there is only a finite number of them, you can get to the first one, which is the first cause. So it is very clear from this logical exposition, we can conclude that the first cause exists. Mr. Mehta said, where did the first cause come from? Who created God? If the first cause had a cause, then it can no longer be the first cause. Let's say if God needs a cause, then a super God created God. Immediately, we need to ask the same question. Does this super God need a cause? So a super God exists, then a super God exists, and a super God exists. On, and we will get a chain of gods. The question is whether this chain has a finite number of gods or an infinite number of gods. We have gone through this already. It cannot be infinite of them. It can only be finite of them. Since there are only finite of them, we can get to the first one. Since it is the first, there cannot be anything before it, meaning it has no cause. The first one is God and the rest of them are not. As you can see, not only the first cause exists, and it requires no cause. Can you see that Mr. Mehta's mind is very simple, that he simply cannot figure out this simple logic? Remember when we come up with a cause and effect sequence, we have the conclusion that in that list, all finite, temporal, and material object requires a cause. If the first cause is finite, temporal, and material, it would not be the first cause. Therefore, we can conclude that the first cause must be infinite, eternal, and non-material. Because the first cause caused everything, it is the creator. Also, the universe is also caused by the first cause, so the first cause created the universe. The first cause has the attributes of God, which transcends space, time, and the universe. So let me ask you, what is that first cause? Mr. Mehta has trouble with the fine-tuning argument too. I have a video in my playlist called The Death Knell of Evolution. that I used the most basic biology and the probability to prove that human beings or any animals could not have been evolved from nothing. Living things are too complicated to be the effect by random chances because the universe is too young to be lucky enough to come up the fine-tuned living things. Please watch my video because I don't want to waste time here. In my playlist, I also provided several pieces of scientific evidence of the existence of God. After you watch them, you will know believing the existence of God is understandable. We humans are finite and temporal. There is just no way for us to prove the infinite and eternal God. Yet God doesn't want us to be superstitious. Therefore, God has given us ample evidence. Hence, the God of gaps is narrowed, and we can base our belief on evidence to know God better by the lip of faith. If you read the Bible, it has many examples that God revealed himself to those who have faith and deliberately hides from those stubborn atheists like Mr. Mehta. Finally, let's go back to Pascal's wager. Pascal was a great mathematician as well as a great theologian. He said that our life in some sense is like a wager. God may exist and God may not. I can believe God exists or I can believe God does not exist. If God exists and I believe, then I win and will receive his blessings. If God does not exist and yet I believe in vain and people will laugh at me. If God does not exist and I don't believe, that is fine and it doesn't matter. However, if God exists and I don't believe, I will lose big. If you're putting up a wager, there are two things you need to consider. First, you will pick a choice that is more likely to win. If you bet on horse racing, would you pick a horse that has never won before? Of course not. We have learned that there is much evidence that God exists, and there is not a single thread of evidence that God does not exist. Please tell me, which do you choose? The second thing you need to consider is what happens when you lose. What kind of price you have to pay. If God does not exist and you believe, you will believe in vain. So people will laugh at you. But there's like a lamp that goes out. So those people who laugh at you will be gone too. So that really doesn't matter after all. But if God exists and you fail to believe, the consequence will be catastrophic. According to the Bible, we will perish. With those two considerations, let me ask you, how do you going to select when you put your life on the line? Therefore, please do not allow Mr. Mehta to mislead you. Of course, you may still have many questions about God and the related issues. My recommendation to you is for you to investigate further. In my channel, besides the evidence of existence of God, there is more for you to investigate. Watch them, you will know the existence of God is understandable and atheism is wrong. Also, another playlist about the Bible. The first one, why is Bible the Bible? Why do people believe the Bible is the revelation of God? Second, some amazing example in the Bible. From those examples, you will know God not only exists, but also amazingly so. Third, what is the source of wisdom? We will examine history to see the Bible really gives us wisdom. If you watch them, you will know how remarkable the Bible is and why the Bible is the best-selling book in history. Last but not least, why are people sinners? Fundamental problem for all of us. Second, what is the consequence of sinners? This is very important to know. Third, what is the gospel? This playlist explains how can we escape hell. All the links are provided below in the description area. In my channel, there are also other videos you might find interesting. If you have any question, comments, even criticism, please feel free to contact me. My email address is belcantog@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and may God richly bless you.